All right, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to this panel. I mean, I know there's a lot of great ones going on right now, but I appreciate you taking time to spend a little bit of time with us. My name's Tim Rizzo. I'm a content creator with Inven Global. And before we jump right into the talking, I'd love to introduce our esteemed panel of guests today. On my right is a man who doesn't really need much introduction, but we like talking about him, so we'll do it anyways. Andre Yenyuk, also known as Reynad within the scene, is the CEO and founder of Tempo Storm. He's the #1 bachelor in esports and also is creating his own card game, The Bazaar, in the near future. Next to him over there is Hakjun Baek, also known as Kranich. He's a very established Korean Hearthstone pro, has attended 2 Hearthstone World Championships, and is the most recent BlizzCon Invitational winner.
One of the recent BlizzCon Invitational. One of the winners.
Yeah, the other one, of course, is right next to us.
And Patra, 3 of us. Yeah.
All right, great.
They're for moral support for Kranich, just carrying us the entire time.
Yeah. All right, before we dig into the discussion itself, let's talk about the history of Hearthstone. A game that was first announced at PAX East in 2013. It then went into a closed beta in the fall of that year, which some of you may have been playing back then, some of you may have not been. It was a very interesting time because a lot of people were wondering why Blizzard would even go down the route of a CCG when they've been doing big titles such as StarCraft and Warcraft in the past. But once the game really went into open beta in the spring of the following year is when the game really started to explode in terms of popularity. And 4 years later, I mean, we're sitting here talking about it from the good old days of Naxxramas to the Witchwood, which is the most recent expansion. So in terms of why the game's lasted that long, there's certainly, a lot of reasons from the good old days of just why the game was fun with the TCG element that has, lasted generations from Magic the Gathering all the way up to Hearthstone now, to the different animations that the board allows and the sound effects, and even Blizzard supporting the game in and of itself over the years with different expansions and content. So to open the discussion up to our panelists, what really drew you to the game to where you have been playing it your whole life? Not whole life, you've been playing it its whole life. Care to talk about that, Kranich?
Well, in case of Hearthstone, I'm actually from South Korea, and everyone there is just playing all the Blizzard games, and then I was also one of the enthusiasts with playing StarCraft and all the brands there, and then I just purely started to play Hearthstone because it's from Blizzard, and then I think it's really interesting, and actually I didn't really play it well, playing well with StarCraft or something because of my mechanical problem, but I really enjoyed Hearthstone, so yeah, it just happened.
What about you, Reynad? What really drew you to the game in its earliest days?
Honestly, I didn't have the best motives. I had kind of a weird life in my teenage years. Things, when I was about 16, things weren't great at home. I spent all my time playing Magic and poker and all these other card games because that was kind of my escape from life. And I ended up dropping out of high school, started traveling the country, playing Magic, and because I kept qualifying for stuff, and they would pay for flights out to pro tours and things like that. So it was just card games are a big part of my life as a teenager. I just always had a massive ego, still do. It's a character flaw. So I found Twitch in 2012. This is before Hearthstone was out, and I realized, hey, I can stream myself, playing Magic online, and that's a great way to get the validation of strangers on the internet and show everyone how awesome I am at children's card games, and stroke the ego. Basically, that was the motive, and I did. The platform right away clicked. I saw it as essentially the next evolution of YouTube. The first 2 minutes I watched a stream, it just made sense. Yeah, so I started streaming with a crappy laptop I bought at Costco. Got partnered, and then eventually I saw Hearthstone come out, and as somebody that had spent so many years playing Magic in so many different capacities, it was clear as day how many things Blizzard did right that Wizards of the Coast just just never did. Hearthstone is like, it's such a simple game, and it's been out long enough. We've all played it enough that it's hard to really appreciate like just how many advancements it made. But I mean, that's a rant I'll get into later. But yeah, basically I saw Hearthstone come out, just wanted that validation again. Since 2012, since I joined Twitch, Hearthstone was actually the first game I saw that came out, and the viewership was going up. Every other game would come out, they'd have their big release day, and then 2 days later, it falls off the face of the earth. Hearthstone is the first game where some people got beta keys. All of a sudden, I was watching Trump. That was my barometer. Trump was hitting like 2,000 viewers, and then 3,000, and then a week later, 4,000. It just kept going up. It was ridiculous. So, yeah, I basically just said, look, as soon as there's a ranked mode, that's how I'm going to make a name for myself. I'm going to be a rank 1 player. Everyone will play my decks because that's kind of what I was known for in Magic, like in my local scene. And that's what happened. They introduced a ranked mode. The next day, I went from 100 concurrent viewers to 10,000, like that day. So.
And we have you to thank for Zoo, of course, which has brought people a lot of joy over the years, and you are the man behind that. So we thank you for that.
Yeah, sorry.
Where did you guys, when in your peak enjoyment, whether it's right now or in the past, what really brought you the most fun when it came to the game itself, whether it be the animation, whether it be the deck building aspect, the ease of access? Where did you really find the most joy playing?
Well, I feel like the game itself is really good and like it is well made because of all the animations and like the interfaces and something. So I think because this is the thing that I am always talking about on my stream is that like actually Hearthstone is the best game in Blizzard that has like the like some kind of powerful effects and all the things that like I just remember good old days with a double molten giant hitting face and like it felt like really
the screen shakes.
Yeah,
it feels
like
satisfying.
Actually better than StarCraft and other games, to be honest. So I think the game itself is just enjoyable and like even though you're not at good level or something, then you can just play it and like can make fun out of playing. So yeah.
What about you, Raynad? You've had kind of this very up and down relationship where, visibly on streams for a couple days, you'll just be miserable playing, but yet 4 years later...
I'm known for my positivity, too.
I know. 4 years later, you're still playing the game to an extent, so you had to have enjoyed something about the game to last this long,
Yeah. I mean, show me an esport title or a streamer that plays a game, and, I'll show you 10 more streamers that play the same game and do nothing but yell at the developer the whole time. It's not an uncommon thing in the industry. I think, for me, for Hearthstone, the thing that keeps me going, it's the same thing that I enjoyed about a lot of, the more commercial card games, which is deck building. I really like being creative, and as weird of an outlet for creativity as children's card games are, that's where you get to express it, is in deck building, right? You get to try new combinations, you get to try to utilize a card that nobody else is, or just create something, and then, if it is good enough and nobody's doing it before and it just catches on and it spreads like wildfire, there's no better feeling. It's just like a validation of this thing you made, right? You can't, again, you can't really like stamp your name on a deck or anything as much as I tried. It's, it is yours, right? When nobody's playing it and then you make something and it just catches on and all of a sudden everybody is, it validates you as a player, as a, like in a creative sense, it's just fulfilling. So.
Something that I think where Hearthstone fits into Blizzard's overall philosophy of, easy to learn, hard to master. And now that you've seen over the years, the gateway to get into the game is a bit expensive, but it's very accessible. You're able to pick it up on your phone. You're able to just download it on the computer. So talk a little bit about how it being so accessible has allowed it to just grow, considering you could walk around this convention center. Everyone's got a mobile phone, so in theory, everyone could be playing Hearthstone.
Yeah, there's a lot of things to touch on there, right? Hearthstone is just so... I come from playing a lot of different card games before Hearthstone, right? So it kind of gives you the benefit of perspective. When you see all of these things that previous card games missed out on, and different esports missed out on, Hearthstone got so much right. That's kind of the reason that it's as prolific as it is. The user interface, they fixed the entire mana system from Magic the Gathering, basically. Magic the Gathering was the first card game where you used mana to play dudes, and then your dudes killed your opponent. That game was made in 1993. Do you think they got it right on the first try? No. The mana system was very volatile. Magic's a great game, but Hearthstone polished a lot of that up. From an esports angle too, it was the first. It is, the first mobile esport, and it's to this day the only mobile esport that's had, widespread appeal and success. So, I think in a lot of different ways it pioneered just the scene as an esport, and I think that's kind of responsible for, it catching on and spreading the way that it did. And you can also point to the fact that, it used the World of Warcraft IP. There was no better developer than Blizzard to make a game like this. They really outdid themselves. I think as far as pushing a genre forward, I don't think Blizzard's ever done a leap that big to what existed before compared to what they did with Hearthstone. It was absolutely brilliant. They got so close to this perfect digital card game on the first try with, they had no shoulders of giants to really stand on. It was huge leaps. So.
Well, yeah, it's the game itself is very accessible, and then it's pretty easy to be played. And also in Korea, mobile games are its market is really huge, and people always tend to play some of the games on mobile phone, and then that's the main reason why so many Korean players are trying to play the game. Also, as you said, it's kind of easy to learn and hard to master. And then the people, what people feel is that they can probably compete in the actual tournaments, because as a esports, people really wants to play in tournaments and try to beat some kind of famous and popular players and streamers. Just compared to other actual esports, people really enjoy to watch it, but they just don't really think that they can do something real in the actual tournaments or something. But if I'm saying about Hearthstone, then so many players are just trying to compete and gather some championship points or something. So I think it's the main difference between I don't know, among other games. Yeah.
Something that's very interesting and helped build the foundation of Hearthstone where it is today is how it spread through Twitch so quickly, like wildfire, as soon as it came out, like Reynad was mentioning. And to this day, the top streamers for Hearthstone are pulling massive numbers, even in contrast to other games like League of Legends and Dota. And both of you guys have built a level of exposure, and you've built your brands through Twitch in and of itself. So can you talk a little bit about how Twitch kind of changed the game for Hearthstone and allowed it to become that tier 1 esport instead of just staying at that casual card game level?
Yeah, I think it's not even so much as Twitch changing Hearthstone. I think it was more Hearthstone changed Twitch. From an esports level and just a gaming content level, the game, by accident in a lot of ways, is actually so perfect for streaming on a platform like Twitch. It is, first of all, if you play a 5-minute tutorial, you're going to understand the fundamental rules. Very few games have a learning curve that low. So all of the 70 million people, or however many, have downloaded the game are all potential viewers, because they're going to understand, even if they don't know every card, they're going to understand what's going on when they tune into a Hearthstone stream. That's really, really important, is that low learning curve. It makes it very accessible. The user interface, very simple, easy to understand. The fact that they didn't make the cards rectangles is something I bring up on stream once in a while when I talk about game design. That is so brilliant in so many ways, but nobody ever talks about it. The fact that you play a minion and it turns into a little oval on the board, and that oval is what's flying across the screen and whacking stuff. All of that makes it feel like a video game, and it doesn't make it feel like a card game or like poker. And that is why, you know, the younger audience with a shorter attention span, they can watch it, they can be entertained. The older folks, more into strategy, decision making, they're entertained in that aspect. And the biggest, like the number one reason that the game is good on Twitch is because of the downtime pacing. So 50% of a Hearthstone game is you waiting, or 99% in my case, right? Like, you do your thing, and then you're just waiting for your opponent to do their thing. And while your opponent's doing stuff, you as a content creator, you look over at your chat, answer questions, talk about life, talk about what's going on, play Tinder, do whatever it is that feels right in your heart on Twitch. And that's just such a good pace, right? I talk about my turn, I have downtime, I talk about whatever. And that kind of pacing for a stream is just, it's a perfect recipe for success, you know? From an esports side, there's a lot of check boxes that a game can hit to make it a successful esport. The only game that hits every checkbox, in my opinion, is Rocket League. Counter-Strike gets close. One of those checkboxes is watchability. For somebody to be able to tune in and understand what is going on in the game. And Hearthstone just has that. It has that in spades, and I think that's the most important thing. So.
Well, speaking about viewers' perspective, then like I was actually watching like all the games on Twitch and like League of Legends and something, and then like most of the people watch those streamers streaming because like usually because they're good on the game they're playing really well, and then like I think Hearthstone is a bit different, that people also wants to streamers to playing well and also building decks or something, but there are some kind of ridiculous situations that viewers really enjoys, and also they wants to see like how streamers react about that, and that's the main difference. I mean, like of course there are some kind of funny and like interesting streams playing like other games, but like I think it's the main reason why people enjoy the Hearthstone streams, I guess.
In the game in and of itself allows a lot of different viewing perspectives. If someone wants to watch Arena and focus on that, they have streamers for that. If someone wants to watch highly skilled play but maybe a little bit more of a bland personality, there's that. If someone wants to watch someone get mad at a game for 4 hours, they're able to watch that too. So it provides a lot of different outlets to express yourself on Twitch. And, you know, people have found their niches, and those niches have stayed for, you know, as long as they have now, which is about 4 years. But something that Hearthstone has done that Blizzard has decided to innovate, which may end up being kind of a weakness, is the addition of randomness to the game. I mean, all games have a level of, if it's a card game, it has a level of randomness, whether it be mulligan, whether it be draw RNG, but Hearthstone decided to take it to the next level, whether it be summon a random minion, pick a random spell, select a random target. So talk a little bit about how RNG can, you know, be great for the game in of itself from a viewer's perspective, but also, you know, create those I feel bad moments playing.
Yeah, so I mean, how many of you guys have, you know, played Druid back in some older seasons? And, you know, you play 5 games with the deck. All 5 of those games play out the exact same way. Yep. Yeah, turn 2 hero power, complain. Turn 3 hero power, complain. Turn 4 draw wild growth right on time. You know, like, finish with force roar combo, repeat for 5 games in a row. That is the reason Blizzard has RNG, to make sure that when you play a deck, not every single game is playing out the same way. And for those of you guys that have a Magic the Gathering background, you can kind of see the other way that that's been done in the past. In Magic, it's the mana system that causes the randomness. All the cards have no RNG. They do the same thing every time they're played. But the amount of mana crystals and cards in hand that you have is effectively random for both of you. So having played both games professionally, I will tell you Magic is actually more RNG if you're looking at how often does randomness determine whether you win or lose. The fact that Hearthstone has the consistent resource system, the fact that you get 1 mana crystal every turn, means that they needed to do RNG in a different way. Because if there wasn't any, I can honestly tell you it would be a worse game. And if I'm telling you RNG is like, good for the game, like, I mean it. I will say, Blizzard's not perfect, as many things as they got right. I think they grossly messed up in the way to do RNG early on, with a lot of examples. So from my perspective, I think the biggest, this is the thing that they messed up on. A lot of the cards they did early on, the volatile RNG, the stuff that I think is bad game design, it was the RNG cards that have a strictly better or worse outcome. So a card like Implosion or Crackle, rolling the bigger number is always better, right? So that design is bad because 100% of the time those cards get played, one of the 2 players is pissed off. And if it rolls high, the player that took the Crackle damage is upset. And if it rolls low, the player that played the Crackle is upset. Sure, it serves the purpose of having the game play out differently because the number was different, but it was a strictly better or worse outcome, which always upsets one of the 2 players. The better way to do it is the effects they've had like Clockwork Gnome, all the spare part things, where every outcome is the same power level, but it's just different. So when they do RNG that way, I think it is very healthy for the game. I think it is good. And I think Blizzard has gotten much better at it throughout expansions. I think, in Witchwood, is there an example of like a bad RNG card in your opinion? I haven't really seen one.
Yeah, I guess all the cards are kind of like, I don't know, acceptable, I guess.
So what do you think then, Kranich, in terms of your experience with RNG? Because you play at a very competitive level. So if you lose a game in a tournament just due to RNG when you were so far ahead, that just feels really bad.
Well, yeah.
Kranich doesn't lose.
That just always happens to competitive Hearthstone players. And then what actually happens is that there are so many tournaments, and for example, this year we have like 27 tour stops for a year, and then like sometimes I got wrecked by RNG, but like sometimes it's just fine, and then I got good research. What I feel like about RNG is that like people think that RNG is RNG and like skills and skill, and they just always separate between like each others. And then like let me just speak about like some cards like Rock and Rolls. People think that it's all about RNG, but like
sorry, which card? I didn't mean
Ragnaros.
Oh, Ragnaros.
Yeah. Because like if you're playing Ragnaros, then you have to think about like what do you really want to hit, and then like there are so many decisions that you have to trace some of the minions, and like what targets do you have to think about what target do you actually want to hit, and then have to calculate the actual like the possibilities, and then you play it. Of course, the results are decided by RNG, but it actually matters that how you play. So, I think some of the RNGs are good for competitive players. Yeah, it's my opinion.
Yeah, there's a lot of skill in, like, when the outcome is uncertain. That's where a lot of the execution in Hearthstone comes into play. That's where like the best players can make the decision that maximizes the RNG in their favor, rather than, it's not like they do all this skillful stuff and then there's a coin flip which has no skill. It's rarely like that. It's more like, it's actually like Counter-Strike a lot. You're never going to hit any shot 100% of the time in a first-person shooter, but the better players are going to position themselves in a way where instead of having an 80% chance of hitting the shot, they're going to have a 90% chance. And you do that over the course of, hundreds of games, hundreds of tournaments, the best players do come out on top. Yeah. I think the RNG is a really important thing to talk about when it comes to Hearthstone, especially on the esports side of things. I think that it hurts the credibility of the game, the way the public speaks about the RNG, and I think that's the most damaging impact, right? We want our esport to be respected. But at the same time, it's like, it's not, for an individual game, RNG will be determining who wins a lot of the time. But the truth is, when you look at pro level play, and who's going to win a tournament, the prep work before the game even starts is at least 90% of what's responsible for how well that player does in a tournament. It's maximizing your practice in between events in the hectic Hearthstone tournament schedule. That's what's going to give a player a higher win rate over time. And if there was only one tournament a year and all players in the world had 364 days to prepare for that tournament, I think you would be very surprised at how consistently the best players would place in that tournament. I think it would happen in an inordinate amount of time. I think one or two might get screwed by RNG, but it's not a random esport by any means. That's all I'll say.
You bring up an interesting point in that how players can sometimes make RNG feel a lot worse than it is for a game, because sometimes you'll see, I figured it was a recent tournament where someone's like, oh, what do you credit winning? Well, I played this on 4, I played this on 6, and that was the game. So in a way, how the professionals deal with RNG, especially because they're on that bigger stage at a high level, can kind of dictate how RNG is perceived within the game itself, instead of it being this game of skill that it really is.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I don't think it helps when the pros say that kind of stuff. I'm guilty of doing it myself all the time, but and people were saying that long before the pros were complaining. The whole RNG argument. Yeah, I think it's it is what it is. We're still seeing the best players in the world come out ahead pretty consistently.
No, absolutely. And it's weird because Hearthstone initially was marketed as a casual card game, but now there's been talk that they're looking to implement a tournament mode within the in-game client in and of itself. So how do you think that's going to go within the game itself, considering this is just this casual game, but now you're kind of putting esports in the game itself? So what do you think about that, Kranich?
I think it's pretty necessary, since we're all playing like ladder and ranked games as a professional player, but thing is that it's very different. That playing ladder and playing actual tournament is kind of really, I don't know, it's total,
two different games.
It's the two difference. So I think this is the good way to introduce like how actually the pros are playing on like tournament level or something. Then probably it will just, I don't know, there are too many players or viewers who don't really understand about tournaments, but this is the good way to introduce it.
I think what's really interesting, and to touch upon what you just mentioned, is that now you don't have to be a professional to have a tournament. You can just get a bunch of buddies together, create a tournament in the in-game client, and just kind of build that amateur scene to where someday, maybe you're able to participate in a tournament land, build those professional points, and who knows how you can be the next pro player on the circuit like yourself and like you were in your good old days.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Let's compare BlizzCon trophies, Tim. Right.
So what do you say, Raynad, about adding just that in-game tournament option for players?
I think it's good that they did. I think it's important for the game. At the same time, I don't think it changes anything. Everything that the tournament client does is something that was just being done in a third-party platform before, on Battlefy or Tournament or whatever is being used. So it's a lot like when Heroes of the Storm added bans to their game, right?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, in the early days there was no bans in Heroes of the Storm, and the players just made tools on third-party websites to do it for tournaments. And I think it was just unintuitive and weird that we had to like add an opponent as a friend and like get his battle tag and then play a friendly match, and like that's how tournaments were done for 4 years. I think I just see this as like a clean UI change. I don't think it's going to fundamentally change anything about Hearthstone. I'm glad they did it though.
Fair enough. As much as we've talked about the good things that Hearthstone's done over the years, it could always take it to another level. It could always improve. So where do you think that Hearthstone needs to improve in order, whether it be from the esports scene, whether it be from the in-game client itself or card design in the future, to really keep it as a tier 1 esport instead of falling back into its casual card game ways?
You want to take this one? Me too. All right. Yeah. So for this, I think I think Blizzard did a lot of right stuff in last year. I think they implemented the whole pro point system, which is complicated enough that even I don't know how it works. But I know that it's a lot more similar to Magic the Gathering's model than it used to be, and that's important because that kind of model means, after a player gets enough points, they can kind of ride the gravy train, is what we called it in Magic. I don't know what you call it in Hearthstone, but essentially get your flights paid for, get some appearance fees, have it be sustainable to do this for a living rather than spending your entire savings to go to a dream hack for a 1 in 300 chance of making your money back. I think this kind of ecosystem that they're building is a lot more sustainable. We'll see where it goes from here. I think Blizzard's getting smarter about the way that they design their cards, about the way that they design their game, and about the way that they run their esports scene.
Well, I think Blizzard is, I don't know why, but Blizzard is afraid of just making their game to be more competitive because they are always tend to stick to some kind of casual games, and they're always showing something cool and really like relaxing or something like that. But I think there should be something more in kind of like the system, because they have to. I think they have to build some kind of system in game, like pro ladders, and they're showing like some matchmaking ratings, and probably they can also show some kind of rankings for in real time, like for, I don't know, like top 500 or something, because I don't know what they're exactly thinking, but they might think those kind of system will make some of the casual players to be confused though, but I don't think so, because like there are so many casual players also wants to see something really competitive. So I think there will be some kind of more additions to the game.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. The truth is, pro level play for Hearthstone and Hearthstone ladder is just a different video game. It's not like, oh, in pro it's just the same game but the players are better. It is quite literally a different game, because on ladder it's a best of one where you're blind picking any deck in the game. Or in a tournament, you're talking about best of fives usually with multiple different formats like Conquest or Last Hero Standing. Depending on the format, that's going to change the lineup that you bring. The decks themselves that you're playing are built for your lineup. They're not just the best list of Quest Rogue in a vacuum. It's what is the best list of all of the decks I'm bringing, considering I'm banning Warlock. It changes the way you build everything. So it's just a different video game, and I agree with Cran. It should be good if there's a more competitive experience in the game itself. I think being able to set up our own brackets is a good start, but if there was anything at all that's not Legend Ladder, it would be such a big step forward, because that experience absolutely sucks if you're a competitive player.
It's something that Kranich touched on within the in-game client, is maybe the addition of wanting stats instead of having to go through a third party to see, how have I done against Shaman in the last week? How have I done in the last 14 days? And I understand how that could be maybe intimidating to put into a game for a new player, but it's something that might...
It's not that they're choosing not to. Blizzard has wanted an API for 4 years, but I don't... The last I heard, you can't use the word API in Team 5 anymore. They've looked into it many, many times, but it's just, for whatever reason, I don't know the reason. It's not that they don't want to do the stats in the API. It's that it's not possible. So, yeah.
Do you think the game at all is limited, maybe as an esport, because it has to be translated over to mobile, and there are certain limitations that maybe the online client can have that the mobile client maybe can't have?
I think so, for sure. There's a bunch of little advanced options I would love. I would love an auto squelch. I would love to be able to... This is like the biggest first world problem ever, but I would love to be able to mass open packs or auto open packs. The fact that I have to individually do it, like, just puts it into perspective. If I like to buy like 600 packs or so every expansion, because I just have poor decision-making skills as an adult. And to open that amount of packs is like literally 4 hours at least. 4 hours of like nonstop clicking. Like carpal tunnel trying to open as fast as 4 hours. Like, I'm getting punished for giving them too much of my money. It's like, sorry, this is like a rant, but yeah, that and auto squelch, like I agree. On the PC version, at least, it'd be cool to have a little advanced options drop down and,
Or a one-time ticket to just do it once for that one purchase
yeah.
to just get it done, and then it circumvents their argument.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many ways to implement it too. Even if it's like a hidden option where I have to like literally edit a notepad file in the code somewhere to, like you can do that to change frame rate. Anyway, yeah, that's my rant, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, Hearthstone is the game which is played on mobile, and probably that's kind of a limitation. But I think they can just separate it. Like, there might be some kind of functions that actually works on PC version. Then like probably you can just play your games on mobile, and then I think it's just okay to make some kind of complicated functions just only for like PC versions. Probably that's okay.
All right, I'm gonna open up the can of worms when it comes to a thing that you mentioned about Raynad, how each game and each esport you mentioned recently in your panel earlier, how it kind of goes through these ebbs and flows where it hits a peak and then it dips back off depending on the phase that it's in. And you did an interview recently where you were talking a little bit about Hearthstone's path. Where do you think the game is right now when it comes to that arc of where it is in the esports scene, considering TCGs such as Magic have a very extended arc where its peak could be over a 3-year span, opposed to some esports it could be 6 months.
Yeah, I think Hearthstone wherever the peak was, the highest concurrent player base, the highest viewership, I think we're past that point. But when I say that, I don't mean I think the game is dying or anything. Far from it. I think it'll be around for years and years and years and years and years to come. But it's definitely past that hype phase where everybody and their mom is playing the game, and we have all those casuals that like are just trying it because Hearthstone's the exciting new thing. We're past the days where there can be 6 Hearthstone streamers on Twitch at the same time, all of which are over 20,000 concurrents. Like we're not. And that's okay, like we've normalized now. And I think that's kind of the phase that we're in now. Yeah.
Do you have any sort of, Kranich, you're more than welcome to chime in on this. Do you have any predictions about the foreseeable future in terms of where you see the game going in the future to kind of maybe either support the esports scene or maybe try and cast more of a net to get more casual players?
Well, as a esports perspective, I think this year might be a really important one because Blizzard actually announced about the some kind of pro systems or something, and then it might be very different because I don't know, Hearthstone scene is like there are some kind of players and streamers who already were kind of established really well, and then there are some kind of new new players who are trying to get into, and then they're trying to compete, and they're trying to gather some points, and they just really want to go upside. And then I think when Blizzard trying to improve some kind of pro systems or something, then there'll be they can be just separated, I guess. Then this is the first year of the system, so we'll see. But I think it will work really well.
I'd like to see them be a little more adventurous in how they experiment with things they can do with their game. Like to support esports, for example, what if there was for like a month there was a different variant of the classic pack, and it's the same cards, but the little gem is green, and for every classic pack that's bought, 25 cents goes towards the Hearthstone World Championship, or whatever, like the next major for the event. It could build hype for the game, get viewership. It's something that we've seen have a lot of success with Counter-Strike, with Dota. I just think they should, experiment with some things like that.
And go figure, Kranich mentions that this year is incredibly important, and Ben Brode goes ahead and leaves, so that's great. I'd love to now open up the discussion. If you have any questions for our lovely panelists.
Yeah, But a lot of times I watch because I'm like, "No, I want to get better because these players are better than me, and if I can play more like them, I'll be better. And I feel like that Hearthstone esports is like for me. Like I'm the intended audience, but I don't watch Hearthstone esports. I don't know. I was going to ask people in this room if any of you in the last week have watched a competitive Hearthstone tournament, or in the last 2 weeks. Anybody?
Yeah.
2 weeks? Okay. So there's not that many people, and I feel like I am the audience, but it's so boring. I'd rather watch a streamer play because they can tell me, oh, I did this turn 2 instead of this because, for this reason. And I find that the Hearthstone games that I do watch are the ones where, like, there was this team format once where they had 3 players on the same team and they would listen in to like,
That guy made that, right
That guy
there.
made
Doug.
that.
Yep.
And that's so
Trinity
much more,
series,
yeah,
right?
the Trinity series, yeah. It's so much more interesting to me. Or another example, I had an idea, which is like poker is one of the only other card games that people watch, and like there's no social aspect in Hearthstone. It'd be cool if Raynan walks up to somebody like, hey, do that flame strike on turn set, and the guy just sits there with a blank face. Like that's so much more entertaining, right? Than like, this sort of thing.
Did you? I mean, I have a question for you. Did you used to watch maybe the House Cups and things back in the day?
Actually, I watched more when I didn't know as much about the game. Like when I was just getting into the game, I'd go on Twitch. The first thing that I saw, I'd watch, and then usually there were tournaments or whatever. But now I rarely watch. I just watch streamers, and I like to listen to their mulligan decisions and that sort of stuff. Interests me a lot.
I think it's a good point. Yeah, a lot of games have that struggle, right, where they're more interesting to watch an individual compared to like a tournament. I would say Battle Royale is like the biggest genre in gaming right now, and I think it has kind of that same thing going on where if you're just following one team and you're listening to their comms, and that team is in a game with 96 other players, that's really compelling to watch as a viewer. You're invested in them, their story. When you try watching a third-person perspective, 20 teams in this 80-player game in an esport tournament, it's a shit show. And like that's what a lot of competitive PUBG looks like, for example. So I think part of it, is on the production to figure out the formats that, are best and the most compelling for viewers to watch. But at the same time, it's okay to be interested in the content creators and not the esports stuff. I think you're right, though. There's more fun formats that should be getting explored with the esports side of things. But I kind of want to point out why that's changed too. Actually, it's something we talk about a lot with our studio. Temple Storm just built one out. We wanted to run a lot of Hearthstone tournaments. We will be running a lot of them. The game's ecosystem is different than what it used to be. So for something like a Trinity series where you have a bunch of teams competing, the thing that's going to make a lot like you interested in watching is going to be like these faces that you recognize, right? Like, oh, I watch Savitz stream a lot. I'll watch this tournament if Savitz is playing right now, right? That would be interesting, right? So the money behind Hearthstone for content creators has changed a lot in the last few years. There's more advertisers coming into Twitch. Hearthstone streams have very good viewership, and the streamers put a lot of hours in. So what happened is everybody just started making more money. And when everybody makes more money, what it means is in order for them to take a day off of streaming and play a tournament, or for them to take 5 days off and fly to a corner of the world to do a House Cup, the opportunity cost behind that is through the roof. So what we saw is in the early days of Hearthstone, 2014, 2015, we saw a lot of community events, a lot of Seed Story Cups, House Cups, different just fun events. But nowadays, it's hard to ask the streamers that you want to see in a tournament to leave their house and go to an event because all of them lose quite a bit of money in doing that. So, that's my perspective on it, at least. We talk about it a lot, but I agree with you. I think there's fun formats to try, and we'll explore some of those. We'll see if we can make that better.
You mentioned there's like Blizzard's getting better at their card making, and I used to watch a lot of tournaments back when you were talking about, and I always thought till you said what you just said that my attention dropped off because I felt the game got less fun to watch. It just felt so RNG, and then you said that statement about RNG and Magic. I never thought of it that way, but I also feel like the RNG feels less like you can control it when you see a game like Hearthstone. It feels still to where do you feel like the curve kind of shifted in the cards? Like, you know, if you look through this.
GVG, 100% GVG. Vanilla and Nax was it was a skill-based game. Like straight up, it was just a skill-based game. Do you think what expansion do you think made it more random, I guess, or changed how Hearthstone played the most?
I think there are like several expansions. I feel like probably goblins and gnomes, and then I also didn't really like I don't know, probably Gajechan, I guess. But I feel like there are some expansions which had like so many cards that has RNG and also decides game, just like playing a single card. Then yeah.
What you're talking about is it's a subjective problem, right? It's like this perception that the game is random, and that's what makes you unmotivated to play it. So, a lot of things would have to change for somebody with your perspective to do a 180 and be like, oh, this is a skill-intensive game, let me jump back in. Once you're kind of thinking about the game that way, almost no matter how they do card design for the next few expansions, it's going to kind of have that perception to you. I think it's just a part of the natural cycle of the game, Some folks just going to decide, it's not for me anymore. I'm going to take a step back. But, I'd say when Hearthstone was at its peak, as far as viewership and everything, I would argue, GVG and everything was out, and it was equally, if not more, random. But, Hearthstone's also suffered from just like some awkward stretches of metagames. Totem Golem was one of the worst things that ever happened to the game, and that for a year of Totem Golem meta to then have them nerf Rockbiter weapon, that I think is kind of stuff like that is bad, right? Like that's something where I can point to it and be like, hey, Blizzard, you fucked up here. You should have changed this faster. You would have more players. Mean streets, right? Patches that probably should not have been made. But that's a pretty good track record, all things considered, right? In 4 years, when you only have like a couple of those egregious errors, Undertaker or whatever, it's like at least they ended up changing them eventually, and I think that they're getting better at changing them faster. So.
Do you feel like a tournament format change would help the competitive scene a lot more than those cards was?
Competitive is not as random as you think it is. When you watch a tournament game and you're tuning in, you're probably watching one game at a time. And that one game will definitely have random elements that decide who wins. But overall, like throughout a tournament or throughout a season, the game is much less random than the average viewer thinks it is. It's astonishing how predictable the winner will be when you just look at the decks that people have round one. Like the lineup that they submit is just matters a lot more than the RNG that you see. The stuff that you see on screen makes it feel very RNG, but the stuff that actually decides the winner, it's not like in your face the way that a rag flip is. But trust me, it's more skill intensive than it looks.
We could take one more question if anyone has one. We can do them both. It doesn't matter. We have a little bit of time.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. Last Wild tournament I played was against Kranich. It was in Korea. I think I played Murloc Tiny Fin.
Yeah. What do you think, Kranich, in regards to helping support the Wild scene when it comes to tournaments? Because they do have the Wild Fest or Wild Invitational, but they don't really have much of a Wild scene in terms of competitive.
I think it should be definitely bigger than what it happened. Like, I think it's very cool, and also I really want to say about like not only for Wild, they probably should provide some like more rules and formats that is interesting. I just remember the the rules that we played in BlizzCon, and it was pretty fun because it's I think it's more interesting for viewers, and also it's more it's better for competitive players, I guess, because they're just getting like tested. They have to build so many different new decks for new formats, and that was actually happening at some kind of tournaments like House Cups and something. There are some interesting builds, and I really enjoyed that. So yeah, supporting for Wild would be much better, and also yeah, there should be more rules and formats, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing Hearthstone could do to see an increase in player base is introduce a sealed deck format to the game, where you open packs and then build decks out of those, rather than drafting cards like Arena. And I think that on the esports side, 100% agree with you. They should make Wild more of a focus, but on top of that, they should make Arena a focus, because of all the competitive card games I've ever played, Hearthstone's the only one where they've decided, okay, only this one format, this is the competitive format. And that to me is ridiculous. When you go to a Magic Pro Tour, literally half of your matches are limited. It's Arena, you're drafting. And the skill set in that, especially in a game like Magic, compared to playing the constructed mode where you build a deck like Standard, they're absolutely night and day different, right? The player could have the best Standard deck, understand every matchup, go undefeated in Standard, and he wouldn't even make top 8 because he bombs out in the other format. So I think, I would like to see the big Hearthstone tournaments identify the best Hearthstone player, not the best Conquest Standard deck lineup builder, which is what it kind of rewards right now. And I think Arena's a part of that.
And Ray makes a good point, because throughout the history we had the heroic tavern brawls back in the day where, then they had the versions for Wild and the viewership was there. People tuned in to see, what Savit's going to play on Wild, what's Kalenta going to play on Wild, and see how they do. So the viewership would be there, and people do want to come and see it, because there are people who do not play Standard and they just play Wild because, they maybe haven't wanted to keep up with the money over the years. So we could take one final question if there is one.
So I played a lot of Hearthstone, I played a lot of Overwatch, and it seems like Team 5, which I believe creates Overwatch as well, not 100% sure, they have a lot of problems keeping up with, I guess, what the community wants and like how they feel about certain things. Like you were talking about Totem Golem and Overwatch. Obviously, there's some problems that a lot of people complain about, and it seems like they don't really care about our opinion. Or that's a feeling I kind of get sometimes. What do you guys think, like, we can do as a community to be like, hey, like, this is really overpowered and like we need to change this because it sucks?
Before they answer that, I just want to identify that the Hearthstone team and the Overwatch team don't have any sort of communication when it comes to making changes for each other's game.
Yeah, they used to be in the same office when Overwatch was like in pre-beta, but yeah, they're very different separate teams. But the fact that they're separate teams is like my number one point. No matter what game you look at, the players are going to be complaining about it. They're going to call the developers idiots. They're going to say you need to change this and this and this and this. And as a developer, if you do change everything that the community wants you to change, your game will go to shit. You have to like cherry pick the things that are actually problematic and the things that actually need to be changed. And it's a soft skill. It's subjective. I think that Team 5's gotten better at it. I think the Hearthstone team has gotten better at it over time. But no dev's going to be perfect, and the complaining, no matter what you do, will never stop in any game scene. It's not unique to Hearthstone and Overwatch. League players will complain about balance. Dota players will complain about balance. It's what we do. We're gamers, So I think Blizzard rightfully does not cave in to the whims of every single Hearthstone player. I will say that straight up. When I read the Hearthstone subreddit, as a pro player, 99% of the things that they want changed would be horrible decisions for the game. And thank God Blizzard doesn't listen to them. However, there are certain times when they should listen, right? Like I think the Totem Golem thing was the most egregious problem. That was a chance for them to like talk to some pro players ahead of time, and like 5 minutes after they posted those patch notes, I put up a YouTube video saying, yeah, this nerf is actually going to buff Shaman. And then it went live, and Shaman's win rate went up 2%. because they got rid of Yogg, which was the only counterplay to Shaman. And it's like, they could have just had a conversation with some pros ahead of time, all of which would have said, nerfing Rockbiter Weapon is dumb, nerf Totem Golem, and the problem would have been averted. So I think it's more like Blizzard could be more selective about listening to folks, I guess. Yeah. Some folks. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Reynard that I think in case of Hearthstone, it's kind of ecosystem with so many decks, and then probably they can just nerf what players really wants, but then nobody is actually like exactly expecting what will happen, because like there's some kind of, I don't know, rock scissors papers on it, and then probably they just nerf one of it, and it'll just some kind of there'll be some kind of snowballs, and then there'll be the result which is unexpected. So they should be careful about it. Yeah, that's my opinion.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much all for spending your last session of IGC with us. If you wouldn't mind giving a hand for our panelists, you can. All right. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your Tuesdays.